Hello, friends. Welcome back to another adventure. This adventure takes us to Dallas. Dallas is absolutely amazing, and we had a good time going up there. We did a little bit of tailgating and we traveled the historic Shawnee Trail. Here we are checking into our hotel. This is the Embassy Suites, you guys. It was very, very nice. We like to feature the hotels that we stay at when we travel because sometimes you're in the city and you're kind of like, oh, I don't really know, do I want to go here or there. It's kind of good to have a little bit of insight on the entirety. So we're featuring our hotel in this video. So this particular property has 13 floors, and it's just well appointed. I really loved staying there. In this part of the video, I'm in the lobby and I'm just walking around. It's Christmas time, so they have the tree decorated, and you guys can see that it's massive. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. They have the lobby decorated. The staff were really friendly, really wonderful, and we enjoyed our stay. Also, we're a family of 5, so our rooms were big enough for all of us to be there comfortably and not really, kind of feel like sardines packed in a tin, if you will. We were so like I said, it has 13 floors. Now, we were on the 9th floor. So we got an amazing view of everything else. That's like the breakfast area. I believe I'm looking down into the breakfast area right there. This is the next morning. We woke up and the sky was just gorgeous. Look at that. You could see all the different variations in clouds, the buildings, and everything like that. I like skylines. So I was amazed to just stand there and be able to capture everything. And it was so peaceful. Like, it was quiet. I love that time of the morning when a lot of people aren't up moving around. My family were still asleep, and I got up. I got up and get my lemon water, or I get some tea, some green tea, and I'll sit and just look out into the abyss, if you will. And I enjoyed that. Like, those things keep me really zen and quiet and calm and peaceful. So I was very delighted to be able to see all of this happening in solitude and in silence. And I think that's an apartment building across the street. Yeah, that's an apartment building. My husband and I were looking out later on at the solar panels and stuff that were on top of the buildings after he got up. But this was amazing to be able to capture this. So then we went down to breakfast. It's quick, in and out. We got our breakfast and we were out of there. So you all, I'm a water child. Wherever there's water, I'm present. I'm always filming anything that has to do with the liquid stuff. I absolutely love it. Whether it's a fountain, lake, oh my gosh, do not get me to the sea or a river or a waterfall. I love it. Here I'm, we went around the city a little bit, and then we got to the Shawnee Trail. So here I am walking towards the trail. Whenever I travel, I incorporate a little bit of history into my site, besides the restaurants and the sightseeing, which I love, because we went to Fogo de Chao when we were here in Dallas for dinner, and it was phenomenal. But besides the food and all of this stuff, I really, really love history. So I always go to seek out something that represents the city well in terms of its historical value. The Shawnee Trail I found absolutely interesting. This trail was used by Texas cattlemen, drovers that took their cattle across a few states. Like, they went into Oklahoma, Missouri, Kansas, and of course they left out of Dallas or Waco. And they carried this cattle across to states like Indiana and places like that. Well, just basically across the Midwest. They ran into trouble though because the Texas Longhorn, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen a Texas Longhorn. They're beautiful, beautiful animals. Absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the span of the horns is phenomenal. The first, because I'm not from Texas. So when we moved here, my husband and I were driving, and there was a field or a pasture rather, and we went by, and there was these massive cows just grazing, and I was like, what is that? And he was like, it's a longhorn. And we pulled over, of course, and took pictures and everything. They are beautiful animals, beautiful long wide horns. And, Texas is barbecue country. They have a lot of cattle. They're cattle country. So the herds were taking up the Shawnee Trail as early as the 1840s, and they used this route, and it gradually increased. But by 1853, they had a lot of trouble because the Longhorns had a plague, and the drovers, wanting to make money, they kind of didn't really care because this plague didn't affect their cattle. So they called the plague the Texas fever. So whenever the cattle would sleep, they would leave these ticks behind on the bed grounds, which infected the local cattle of wherever they were, Indiana or in Missouri or wherever it was, and it would cause a lot of cattle to either die or they were unfit for market. So the herds caused problems for these other farmers in the local counties where they were, and so they decided to create blockades to stop the Texas Longhorns from coming through on the Shawnee Trail. And they were having a lot of problems. So by 1855, the farmers were angry, and they set up like vigilante committees to stop the herds and kill a lot of the Texas cattle that came into Missouri and Indiana and places like that. So when they couldn't fight them out, because Texans are, they're a different breed, so they were like, no, we're fighting back. You're not gonna stop our money. You're not gonna stop us from being able to make money and take care of our families. So they were fighting back. They went to the legislature, and they said, okay, we need this legislature that they cannot come through with these infected cows. The only problem was their cows were not infected. These were healthy cattle, because the tick or the Texas fever did not affect the Longhorns because they were the carriers. So they were fine. So this law would not be brought into effect because their cattle were not sick. In the spring of 1866, an estimated 200,000 to 260,000 Longhorns were pointed to the north. Now, some of these herds were turned back, of course, because, like I said, local farmers were angry and they wouldn't allow them to just come through their counties without consequences. So they would either drive them back or try to drive them back, but it didn't always work out. You can understand the farmers on both sides, because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to feed our families and survive and build wealth and grow. So both the farmers on both sides face that challenge. One, to get their cattle to market. The other, to preserve their home and their lifestyle and their well-being. These people were fighting for their very survival. Naturally, a situation like that would be tense and escalate. And you can see the reasoning on both sides, because they were all justified in their cause. One of the stories that stood out to me that I was very impressed with was the story of a young man called James. He was a Texas youth, only 16 years old. The vigilantes got him on his way across the border. So they got him in Kansas. These jawhawkers were dressed up as hunters. The mobsters grabbed him, they stampeded the herd, and killed one of the cattle hand. This boy was driving 500 steers across to market. Of course, I'm sure maybe his father had died, or maybe he was responsible enough. Obviously, he was responsible enough to take the cattle, so they let him. And these men beat him, they stripped him naked, they whipped him really, really bad. And they let him go. When they let him go, he buried the farm hand that was killed, the cattle hand that was killed, and he went out and recovered 350 of the 500 cattle that they had scattered. I was very amazed by this because, he's young, but he still did it. So this boy got all of his cattle together, took them to Fort Scott, and sold the rest of them at market. The peace and serenity here is incredible. These sculptures were so very lifelike. It was as if you were standing there staring at an actual animal. The cows, the cowboys, the charging, the hooves, the horns. It just really seemed as if the place transported you into that very space. Whenever I visit a new place, I allow my mind to take me to that time. And it's so satisfying. You think of the old water canisters, the metal cups, being able to having to rough it on the ground, and how people spoke. What did they think? How did they feel? You can totally transform your visit to a particular place by using your imagination or the tidbits of history that you have to immerse yourself in the experience. I could hear the hooves, I hear the horns of the cows clashing, the cowboys doing their regular day-to-day as they traveled, and just experiencing life in that era. I just love that. I think it was a great time for them. You're on the open range. Of course, they had issues and circumstances they had to deal with too, but the fun of the adventure is what I focus on when I travel for the most part. Another thing I really love are books. I love books. I love bookstores. I do audibles as well. I like the electronic books, but there's something so wonderful and magical about holding an actual book in your hand. So we found this lovely bookstore while we were there in Fresno called the Bookstore. And there was this lovely sculpture of Jesus washing the disciples' feet. It's the next morning, and we are all set to check out of our hotel room. We are on our way to the tailgate location. The tailgating is going to be taking place outside the AT&T Stadium. So we're checking out. Well, my family are downstairs. They're checking out. And I am just getting a quick video of the room. As I stated before, it had 2 queen-size beds and a pull-out sofa with plenty of room. Of course, we have a younger one that sleeps with us. He doesn't matter what we have. He is in bed with mom and dad. So he slept with us. And it was very comfortable. Like I said, we were able to be in this room comfortably for the 3 days we were in Dallas. And we also had like a little area to eat in case we didn't want to have breakfast downstairs. We were able to bring it back, which is very important to me because I love to sit down and eat breakfast. We are back on the road. I love road trips. I love to drive. My husband and I drove from Texas to California. So I sat with my comfy pillow and my things, and he drove, as always. But I still love to drive. I like to be in the car while he drives me wherever I want to go. Our next trip is planned for Alaska. So we'll be driving from Texas to Alaska. So just a sneak peek of something we have in the making. We are now at the AT&T Stadium outside of the tailgating location. We're driving into our tent. We have an area, or our friends have an area with a tent set up and food and just a good vibe for children. They had the Nintendo, the really old one that controls are attached to still, like the wires and things. And the boys really enjoyed that. They played, they ran, they just had an all-around good time. This was our first time being at a tailgating party. It was amazing. Absolutely love traveling internationally. There's just something so amazing about traveling within the United States that we recently discovered, and the goal is to get to all 50 states. We actually love just being on the road and being out there. We're winding down, it's the end of the night, and we're on the road heading back to our house. If you can, if you're able, if it's just the next town over, read about it, find something interesting to do, and go travel.